and a very good evening to you all. Myself Solu Gautam, and today on behalf of Mero Eye team, I will be hosting the current session, and I extend a very warm welcome to each one of you who have been connected with us through our iTalks webinar. Also, I would like to thank you all for being with us this evening. Thank you for joining with us, and also don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel so you can always be in touch with our programs even in the upcoming days. For now, I would like to step forward to inaugurate today's session, and also I would like to notify you all that we will be having our discussion session at the end of the webinar. So if you get any queries in between the session, just drop them on our comment section. We will get back to you later on. Today, we have with us a very special guest as a speaking delegate, Dr. Shehzad A, all the way from United Kingdom, and he will be talking on topic how to improve routine contact lens practice. Before he begins, I would like to give his general introduction. Dr. Shehzad is an MC Optom, a PhD, and a fellow of European Academy of Optometry and Optics, American Academy of Optometry, International Association of Contact Lens Educators, and of British Contact Lens Association. He is also an editor-in-chief of Contact Lens and Anterior Eye Journal. Also, he is the global president of the International Association of Contact Lens Educators. Further, he was also awarded International Optometrist Award by World Council of Optometry in the year 2015. I welcome you, Dr. Shehzad, on behalf of Mero Eye Foundation and all our participants.
Salu, thank you very much for the very kind introduction. And Kapil, thank you very much for this kind invitation to speak to colleagues in Nepal and the region this evening. Good evening, everybody. I hope that everybody is keeping safe in this unusual time that we are in. And I understand you are in the middle of a very active webinar series. So it's a pleasure for me to be here and talk to you tonight. So I'm going to go into the share screen option and hopefully pull up my slides, which hopefully you can now see. And the topic of my talk is how to improve routine contact lens practice. And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to give you some clinical tips and how that you can make yourself a more competent contact lens practitioner, but I'm going to give you tips for the practice and for the business, and really how we can talk to patients, how we can help patients, how we can help them to have the right products, how we can make sure the patient stays with our practice and keep them updated on innovations and prevent them from dropping out of contact lens wear. So these are the key topics that I wanted to talk about really this evening. So Sala's very kindly introduced me already, so I don't really need to tell you my background. I'm based at Aston University in the United Kingdom, and this is the biggest optometry school in the UK. And I have some roles outside of the university, and I've listed some of those here. But I think the two most important ones are really I'm the editor-in-chief of a journal called Contact Lens and Anterior Eye. And this is the official journal of the British Contact Lens Association. I'm also the president of the International Association of Contact Lens Educators. And if you are a contact lens teacher anywhere in the world, then you will know about IACL. And if you are a contact lens teacher and don't know about IACL, then please look at the IACL webpage, which I'll put on the last slide. So there's a phrase that we sometimes use, which is called contact lens penetration. You may have heard this phrase a couple of times. Now, we estimate the global population is about 7.6 billion people, and obviously growing all the time. Of those 7.6 billion people, we estimate that 5.3 billion, that's about 70%, so more than 2/3, need some type of vision correction. We also know that we have approximately 175 million contact lens wearers in the world. And this is an approximation. And this figure is based on the manufacturers and how many contact lenses they supply and the types of contact lenses they supply. So when we translate this, and when we say we have 175 million wearers and 5.3 billion people who have a need for vision correction, this is what we call the contact lens penetration. So we say we have a contact lens penetration around the world of about 3.3%. And that's a global contact lens penetration. If we look at different countries, for example, in the United Kingdom, it's around 8 or 9%. If we look at the United States of America, which is the highest contact lens penetration, it's about 17%. And lots of other countries are below the USA, and some are below the UK as well. So there are various figures around the world. And do bear in mind that when we talk about this 5.3 billion people who need vision correction, this of course includes presbyopes as well. And some of you might not consider presbyopes as ideal candidates for contact lenses if they're only presbyopic, if they have no other need for vision correction apart from presbyopia. If they're myopic and presbyopic, it's different. If they're hyperopic and presbyopic, it's different. But if they're just presbyopic, you might think, oh, then why have you included them? And that's a good point. And maybe that's but even if we say, okay, let's exclude the presbyopes, which must be at least half of that group, I would guess, then the contact lens penetration globally is still not very high. It's still not very impressive. Now, this is an old study done by a magazine called Optician Magazine in the United Kingdom. And they asked the question to patients who are having eye examinations. And they said, well, let's do a survey of adults in the UK. And they found that 88% of the adults had had an eye examination, a sight test. And 93% were satisfied with the eye care provider, with the ECP. So people like the person who tests their eyes. They trust them, they like them, they're satisfied with that person. Now, one of the things that comes into when we talk about business aspect is the cost, of course. But it was only a third of people who said they weren't satisfied. They were not satisfied with the cost of spectacles and contact lenses. So 2/3 were actually happy. 2/3 they didn't mind the cost of the device because they expected there would be a cost. Now, in the United Kingdom also, we have something where we recall the patients, and we have on our patient management systems, the electronic record systems, where we send them an email or a letter every 2 years, and we remind them to come back to have another eye examination. And in this survey, about a quarter of the patients were coming back sooner than every 2 years. So they were actually coming back more often than we expected them to come back. And in this survey, this was 2005, remember, so it is 15 years ago now, but only 2% of the patients were buying from the internet. And we expected this would rise over time, and it has risen over time, but it's still, in the United Kingdom at least, it's not a massive percent of buying online. But the figure I want to really focus on is the last one, is that 20% of the patients who try contact lenses drop out in the first few months. So we know this. So we know that 1 in 5 patients is going to stop wearing contact lenses after a few months. So what are we doing to actively prevent that dropout? And that's the question we need to ask ourselves, and let's see if we can find any solutions to that quandary. Now, this is a more recent survey. Eurum Contact is an organization that represents the contact lens manufacturers in Europe. And they reckon that across the whole of Europe, not just United Kingdom, it's 10 to 15% of patients buy from the internet. But they came up with the same figure. They said 20% of contact lens patients drop out in the first few months. Same figure as the previous Optician Magazine survey. And they said 30% drop out in the first 3 years. Now, you will find different figures if you look in different magazines, if you look in different research articles. Some people even talk about up to 50% could be dropping out in the first 6 months. So it's a significant percentage of dropping out. And so one way of thinking about this is the contact lens market is like a bucket with holes in it. So we need to try and patch up these holes. I wrote an editorial a few years ago in Contact Lens and Anterior Eye Journal where I said, if you were studying at school and you were studying maths and physics and English language and math and chemistry and other subjects, and contact lenses was one of your subjects, your headmaster, your principal would say to you, look, you're doing well in physics, but in contact lenses, you must try harder. And I think as a profession, this is something we need to think about. We must try harder when it comes to contact lenses. To bring a new patient into your optical practice takes a lot of effort. A lot of energy and effort is used bringing new patients in. So we bring these patients in, and every 5 patients we bring in, we lose one. So we need to focus on the one that we're losing as well. Are there things that we can do differently to prevent that one patient from being lost in those first few months? Here's a graph to show the number of contact lens wearers in the UK over the last 18 years, or thereabouts, 28 years, over the last 28 years. And you can see that the earliest figure goes back to 1992. And you can see over the years, there was a steady increase up till about 96. And then there was a decline in contact lens wearers. And this is probably the time when the first round of extended wear was being used and it wasn't being managed well. The materials were wrong for that type of extended wear. And so there was a drop in contact lens patients. And then about 98, 99, we see the launch of daily disposable lenses, silicone hydrogel materials, and we see a steady growth since that time, up until more recent times. Now, this graph actually only goes up to 2014, the data from this graph. So I looked up other people's data to see if there's any differences. And in fact, ABDO, which is the Association of British Dispensing Opticians, they had figures in 2016. The College of Optometrists had figures in 2018, and their figures were just above 4 million. And if you translate that into the contact lens penetration, this is where that figure of 8 or 9% of the UK population contact lens wearers comes through. Now, there was a very interesting study about 20 years ago, a while ago, by the London Business School. And they did a study looking at what they call the customer value, the customer lifetime value of a contact lens patient. Now, if anybody's interested, I have the chapter that they wrote about this, so I can email it to you if you're interested to get all the data. But this is just one table from that chapter in that report. And they talk about the lifetime value of contact lens patients and the lifetime value of spectacle patients. And they define the lifetime of a patient with your business, with your practice, as being 5 years. They say the patient will stay with your practice for 5 years, and then they might move city, they may move job, they may change. But 5 times is what we call the lifetime in the optical business. And you can see that when we compare to spectacles, the lifetime value of a contact lens patient is always higher, regardless of which European country. We have Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and United Kingdom on this graph. But you can see whichever country we look at, the lifetime value of contact lens patients is always better than spectacles. And on average, we could say that the contact lens patient is 44% more profitable to your optical practice. Let's drill down a little bit further. Let's look at that a little bit in more detail. Let's imagine, and just for the sake of this talk, I'll use the currency of dollars. So let's imagine in dollars, the patient comes in today and buys a pair of spectacles from your optical shop, and you make $60 of profit from that patient's purchase. Then in 2 years' time, you write a reminder to that patient, say, your spectacles are 2 years old, you should come back, have them checked, maybe buy some more. So they come back after 2 years, and it'll be maybe a month later than 2 years, and they also buy another pair of spectacles. And at today's rate, we're saying that those spectacles, you'll make $60 profit. Now let's imagine a contact lens patient where it's very different, because the contact lens patient will buy the lenses every month. So when they come in for the first visit, you actually make very little money. You make very little profit because there's a lot of chair time involved. You have to explain to the patient what contact lenses are, try different lenses. You have to teach the patient how to put the lenses in, take them out, clean the lenses. Maybe you have to do an emergency visit as well. So in this first few weeks, you make less profit. But then you make $20 profit per month for however long they're wearing those contact lenses. So this is a sustained amount of income for your business over a long period of time. Speak to your accountant friends and ask them which of these two patients is more valuable. The patient who gives you lots of money in one go, and then you don't see them again for over 2 years, and they give you another chunk of money. Or the patient that gives you regular income on a regular basis, even though it's less. They will say the second one is better. But remember that your contact lens patients will also buy spectacles. So you'll still make that profit from the spectacle side periodically. And in fact, it's been shown that they're going to be more loyal to your optical practice, and they're more likely to buy spectacles more often. And in fact, they'll probably buy more expensive spectacles because they like you and they trust you more, because you're looking after their contact lenses on a regular basis. So now think about these two patients and think which one is more valuable, the spectacle patient or the contact lens patient. Now, there's been various studies that look at eye care practitioners and if they're proactive or not. And there was an article that said that if you discussed contact lenses as a mode of correction with your patients after the eye examination, then around half of them were going to try contact lenses, as long as the discussion is initiated by the optometrist or the optician. So if we say to the patient, I can see that your spectacles need changing, but have you thought about contact lenses? Or you mentioned that you're going to go on your vacation soon and you're going to the beach. Did you think about contact lenses? Maybe you can wear them when you're wearing your sunglasses or something like this. So the problem is that most eye care practitioners will wait for the patient to start the conversation. So if you're a proactive eye care practitioner, you should start the conversation, because the problem is a lot of patients don't realize that they could wear contact lenses. And some of them even think, well, you didn't mention it to me, so therefore I'm not suitable because you didn't mention it. So maybe we should think about this patient's perception. So this proactive approach will result in a lot more patients wearing contact lenses. And there was a study by Lyndon Jones and colleagues many years ago to show this. The second study is quite an interesting one here. This was it's called the EASE study, which stands for Enhancing the Approach to Selecting Eyewear. And this was actually a really clever idea, a really simple idea. Just imagine your patients come into your practice and let's say he's -3. Wears spectacles, he's -3. And you do the eye examination and you find the prescription hasn't really changed, but he wants to buy some new spectacles. So you say, okay, go into the optical shop and look at the spectacles. He tries the frames. He has to go close to the mirror because he can't see his face very clearly. So in the EASE study, what they did was they did the eye examination, and then they said to the patient, right now, to help you choose your spectacles, I'm going to put these contact lenses on you. So they checked the cornea, they put some daily disposable -3s on the patient's eye. The patient went outside to the optical dispensing area and chose the spectacles because they could see the spectacle frame better. And they found these patients started to buy more expensive spectacles, and many of them even went back and said, actually, these contact lenses, I'd like to try these as well. And a third of the patients actually started wearing contact lenses after that study. So this is a really nice and simple idea. But the approach from the practitioner wasn't, I want you to try contact lenses. The approach was, I'm going to put these contact lenses on your eye to help you choose your spectacles. And then the patient then came back and said, I really like that I could see without my spectacles. Now I'd like to do that more often. So how to introduce contact lenses? Well, there are certain professions that are more suited to contact lenses. If anybody likes cooking, you know that when you open the oven, your glasses steam up. When you open the dishwasher, your spectacles steam up. If you like playing football, you know that spectacles are really impractical. So there are certain professions and certain hobbies where spectacles are not as good as contact lenses. Maybe the patient needs more peripheral vision or those sorts of things. So think about those things. I always say to my students, you ask your patient their occupation. You ask your patient their hobbies. Why? Why do you ask these questions? We ask these questions not because we want to know if he likes football or if he likes tennis. We ask them because we want to know what environment they like to be in for their work and their pleasure. And are there any risks in that environment to them? So if somebody said, I'm a gardener, then we might think, oh, he's outside. Maybe we should advise him to wear sunglasses or a hat with a peak. Or we should say, if you are cutting the hedges with a machine or something, then you should wear some safety goggles. So we want to do a risk analysis. We want to do what we call a visual task analysis. We want to see what environment they're in and if we can benefit that with the eye vision correction that we want to offer them. But in the same way, there are some situations where we could say to them, actually, contact lenses would be a good solution for you in that situation. So think about those patients as well. The E-study, definitely have a look at the E-study. It was a really nice piece of work. It's published in Contact Lens Anterior Eye. And another thing they found was especially those patients who had thick, heavy lenses in their spectacles, these patients were more likely to convert to contact lens patients if you gave them the option of trying them when they went to choose their spectacle. And remember, those high minus patients really struggle to try on frames. Now, of course, these days in our dispensing areas, we might have cameras as well, and they can take a picture or they can take a selfie with their phone. They can look at themselves. But, you know, even when they take a selfie with their phone, they have to put their old glasses back on to look at the picture on their phone. So this is a really nice way of helping them in the dispensing area. Remember that your contact lens patients may have tried contact lenses before. They may have had negative experiences. If they've had positive experiences, try and get the details of the lenses and what type of wearing schedules and see if you can match those wearing schedules with the new products that are available. But if they talk about their old contact lenses, then it gives you an opportunity to then talk to them about the new options. So if somebody says to you, I tried contact lenses 20 years ago and I stopped wearing them, don't just write it on your history and symptoms. You stopped wearing contact lenses 20 years ago. Delve into it. Ask them why. Say, okay, you stopped wearing contact lenses 20 years ago. Why? Why did you stop wearing them? Was there a problem with the contact lenses? Then they might talk to you about discomfort or vision problems or presbyopia or astigmatism or something like this. And some of the patients may have even said to you, they'll come in and say, oh, my previous eye care practitioner told me that I have astigmatism and I can't have contact lenses. Well, now you can say, well, actually, it's different now. There are more products available for astigmatism. I have them in the practice. They're on the shelf. So again, talk to them about the new materials and new products. And especially if that past experience was negative, try to rekindle the interest. A very important point is to inquire about the expectations that they want from contact lenses. If they say, I want my vision to be as sharp and clear with the contact lens as it is with the spectacles, you might not be able to achieve that. But if they say, look, sometimes I play football and I want to wear contact lenses, then maybe you can help them. If they say, look, sometimes when I go out socially, when I'm in a restaurant or at a wedding, then I want to wear contact lenses. I don't want to wear spectacles. Again, you might be able to help them with those situations. So have the detailed discussion with them. This is why there is increased chair time, especially at the start of contact lens wear. So understand why the previous ones failed. Address their fears. And remember those astigmatic patients, because I remember when I started practicing, if we had a patient who wanted to wear contact lenses and they had astigmatism, we either tried to give them the mean spherical equivalent because we couldn't get all the toric lenses, or we would take the corneal curvature measurements, the keratometry readings, we would take their spectacle prescription, we would phone the manufacturer and we'd give them the details, including the back vertex distance, and maybe 1 week later, 2 weeks later, they would send us a pair of toric lenses. So they were custom made for that patient's prescription. Then we would try them on. If they didn't fit correctly, we'd have to send them back. They would send us another pair. Now it's 1 month after the first visit. So that's no longer the case. To fit astigmatism patients now, to fit toric lenses to patients with astigmatism is not considered to be a specialist type of contact lens now. We have them in our practice on our shelves. we can try them straight away. And lots of different seal powers and lots of different axes as well. So when do we want to start talking about contact lenses? At what point of the conversation are we going to introduce the concept? Well, in the beginning, you ask them generic questions. You ask them about their family. Does anybody wear contact lenses? Have you worn contact lenses? And they might tell you. So pick up on that. And at the end, you might want to offer them a trial, offer them a free trial, put some lenses on them to help them choose their spectacles, those sorts of things. When they collect their spectacles, maybe you can say, okay, now these are your new spectacles. Do you want to book yourself in for a contact lens check or a contact lens trial? And we can do that with you now as well. Remember, this is a patient who's now buying into your practice. They like your practice. And as I've just said, probe on their profession, their occupation, their hobbies, and talk about some of the limitations that the spectacles might have. And try to match the benefits of contact lenses with what they're telling you. Again, in aftercare, this is very important. Don't have a negative approach. And it's something which we're all guilty of, I think. So sometimes we have these patients and they say something like, they wear contact lenses and then they come in for the aftercare and we say, do you sleep in your lenses? And they say, oh yeah, sometimes I fall asleep in my contact lenses. And then we say, oh, you should never do that. You should never do that. You should never fall asleep in your contact lenses. It's so dangerous. You can get this problem, this problem, this problem. We show them a picture and we say, this can happen to your eye. That's a very negative thing. Instead of that, use it the other way around. Say, okay, you slept in your contact lenses. You know you shouldn't do that. But if you are going to sleep in your contact lenses, then there are materials that are better than the one you have, that you can sleep in the contact lenses. So let's talk about a different product because that will work better for you. If they say, I work in the office, my eyes are dry at the end of the day, well, we don't say, okay, just reduce your wearing time. Say, well, maybe there is a solution for that. Maybe at the end of the day, you can put some re-wetting drops in to help you lubricate your contact lenses again for the next few hours until you get home. So talk to them about solutions and don't just highlight the problems. And I think this is quite an important slide here because timing is very important. Timing is crucial here. There will be patients who come in for contact lens checks and they will say things that we just write down and we ignore it. And there are patients and we say, how are your contact lenses? And they say, oh, they're fine, but sometimes my eyes feel a bit dry or I have to rub my eyes or sometimes I find that I can't wear the lenses for 12 hours each day. I wear them for 10 hours each day. And we just write it down. Address the problem. So if they're saying to you that I'm wearing my lenses for an hour or 2 hours less, or my eyes feel like I want to rub them, or there's discomfort, address the issue and talk about a solution, maybe re-wetting drops, different materials, cleaning regimes, etc. If you don't, then what will happen is they will naturally reduce their wearing time. And they'll come out the next time and they'll say, yeah, I still wear my contact lenses. I don't wear them all the time now. Now I wear them 4 days a week and 10 hours a day, but I'm happy with that. So we write down, the patient is happy. He wears them 4 days a week, 10 hours a day, he's happy. But that's not what he initially was doing. So there's something that's changed here. So they reduce their total wearing time. Then they might get to the point where their eyes are a bit sore, so they stop wearing the lenses because they remember the advice you gave them. So if my eyes sore, stop wearing the lenses. So they stop wearing their contact lenses. And then they stop wearing them for a day, 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month. They've lost the contact lenses in their house. They can't remember where they put them. They lost the cleaning solution or the case. And then they say, okay, you know what? I won't bother this month. I'll get some next month. The next month comes, they don't bother. I like the look of my spectacles. They're now back to wearing spectacles. And that's a permanent dropout. You need to address these patients early on when they say those things like, yeah, everything's okay, but I've reduced my wearing time, but my lenses aren't as comfortable at the end of the day. Try to find a solution and talk it through with the patient. So timing is very important. And also think of those things as opportunities to upgrade. So those patients who are not able to wear them for long hours, maybe we need to think about lenses which have better wettability or less dehydration. Those patients who swap between their spectacles and contact lenses because of lots of travel, maybe we should give them daily disposables so they don't have to take all the contact lens cleaning solutions with them. They use their re-wetting drops more. Again, maybe we need to think of a better material for them. Their eyes are red towards the end of the day. Maybe we need to talk to them about different products and different wearing schedules as well. But also there are some visual issues that might come into place here. Those patients who say, yeah, my contact lenses are fine, but now I find that I have to hold things further away. Of course, they're just naturally becoming presbyopic. I have to wear my husband's reading glasses. I can manage, but I don't feel comfortable anymore. this is where we can start to introduce the concept of multifocal contact lenses, or modified monovision, where we put a multifocal in one eye and a single vision in the other eye. We could talk to them about disposables and daily disposables, and this may help us to solve some of these dropout problems. Remember that presbyopes are interested in contact lenses, and presbyopes don't like to be told that they're getting old. Presbyopes have more money than the younger patients. They have more disposable income. Their children have gone to university. These people have paid for their mortgages already. They've got their nice house. They've got a nice car. So these patients have what we call disposable income. And then they're sitting in front of you, and you are a 25-year-old practitioner who's just finished your training, and you say, well, the reason why you can't read is now because you're getting old. My dad's like you. He's the same age as you, and you need to get reading glasses. Presbyopes don't want to hear that. They want positive solutions and positive psychology here. So we need to say things like, well, you know, you said that you like to play golf, but you have difficulty writing down the score when you've played golf, or you like to go skiing, but you can't see the map when you go skiing, or you like to, I don't know, go cycling, but you can't see the map on your phone. Talk to them about the potential solutions that you can offer them to help them with their presbyopia, because the presbyopes still want to lead an active lifestyle. They still want to do those things, and they still want to feel young, and they don't want to be reminded that they're getting old. Astigmatism, same sort of thing. Now, I've mentioned already that when I first started fitting contact lenses, we used to special order the toric contact lenses for people with astigmatism. And then the low ones, we used to fit them with mean spherical equivalents. Now, imagine that patient who's, let's imagine a -3 with a -1 sill. Let's make it oblique, even to make it more complicated. So he has a -1 sill at 45 degrees. With his spectacles, he reads 6.5. But you think to yourself, okay, he's -3 with a -1 sill. I'll fit him with a -350, the mean spherical equivalent. His VA will drop to 6.6 with the contact lens and mean spherical equivalent. So he'll put his contact lenses on his eyes, he will watch the television, and he'll think, it's not quite as sharp. I can see a shadow because of the astigmatism. It's not quite, I can't see quite the small letters because he's dropped a line of vision. And then he puts his spectacles back on and he says, that's sharper. So he thinks to himself, if I want sharp vision, I have to wear my spectacles. Contact lenses are fine, but they're not as sharp vision as my spectacles. But nowadays, we can correct these sills so easily. So why don't we do it? So don't think about spherical soft lenses as the solution. We don't have to necessarily go to the rigid gas permeable lenses if we don't want to, unless the patient was wearing them already, or RGP torics. But there are lots and lots and lots of designs of soft toric lenses. If one doesn't work, try a different one. They all have slightly different properties, and they all have slightly different parameters that they come in as well. We should be able to find something which is suitable for this patient. This is another study which was done in 2002 from Ophthalmic and Physiological Optics. Graham Young and his colleagues, they did a survey of patients who had dropped out of contact lenses. And they found that people with astigmatism were disproportionately represented. So there was more people with astigmatism in the dropouts than there were in the general population, because these people with astigmatism weren't having their astigmatism solved with the contact lens. We were ignoring their sills. And so more of them were dropping out. So how to upgrade? Well, I mentioned toric contact lenses, mentioned astigmatism, we talked about multifocals, we talked about daily disposables. These are all very sensible, suitable options. Think about the materials that they wear and the material properties. How many of your patients are wearing old technology contact lens materials? How many of you now have got a laptop that you're listening to this lecture on, or a iPad or a phone, which is more than 5 years old? None of you. We upgrade our devices all the time, but many of our contact lens patients are wearing that contact lens material, that contact lens product that was launched 10 years ago. So we're not looking at these new products, which are better. They have better dehydration characteristics and modulus and lubricity characteristics, etc. Think about the wetting agents and the lubricating agents. Again, these are better than they used to be. Again, in the old days, we used to give everybody hypermellows, which we knew we put a drop in, it would wash away very quickly. Now there are drops which have what we call better residence time, which basically means they stay on the eye or stay in contact with the contact lens for longer. So you can put a drop in, 4 or 5 hours later, that drop starts to wear off, you put another drop in. So the drop is working better because it stays in contact with the lens for longer. Think about the way some solutions and some materials interact, because some contact lens cleaning solutions might not be ideal for some materials. Again, think about what the manufacturers recommend for that particular product and speak to your local representatives, company reps, and they will tell you what's the best solution for that particular material that they use. Think about silicone hydrogels versus hydrogels. In many cases, silicone hydrogels will be the solution, but there will be some cases where a traditional hydrogel material might actually be better, especially if somebody's complaining of maybe discomfort and you want to give them a daily disposable, maybe that hydrogel lens is okay for them. So think about, not everybody has to have a silicone hydrogel. And try to think about improving compliance. Remember that by nature, human beings are non-compliant. Your patients are non-compliant. They only listen to certain bits of information. You tell them 10 things that they should and shouldn't do, they remember 3 of them. And then they might only do 1 of them. You know, we say don't sleep in the lenses, but then they don't clean the lenses properly, or they wear them for too long, or they wear the daily disposable for 2 days. So patients generally are non-compliant. So think about that when you give them advice and try to give them simple advice. Now, this was a very big study in Canada at the University of Waterloo, looking at patients who dropped out of contact lenses and why they stopped wearing contact lenses, why they discontinued lens wear. The biggest reason by far was discomfort. Nearly 50% of the patients said discomfort or irritation was the biggest reason why they were stopping wearing contact lenses. Now, if you look at the other reasons in that list, some of those are also related to discomfort. Experienced dry eye, that could be discomfort. They needed to replace the lenses. That could have been because they were uncomfortable. The lens cleaning was too much hassle. Maybe the lens cleaning was causing discomfort. They had a red eye. Maybe that was because of discomfort. So these top 5 reasons, so more than 50%, maybe sort of nearly 70% of the patients, discomfort is a major contributing factor. So think about this. Think about what you can do to make the lens more comfortable. So this is why another reason why maybe silicone hydrogel isn't the answer in every case. Maybe some cases hydrogel might be better. Maybe we need to think about disposables. Maybe we need to think about thinner lenses, etc., etc. So there's lots of things that we can think about here, but discomfort is a major contributing factor to patients stopping contact lens wear. This was another survey, and this was looking at patients who are above the age of 40 and below the age of 40. And what's strikingly obvious here is that the reasons that patients drop out of contact lenses are actually very similar across the board. The only real exception here is that the under 40s reported more discomfort. The dry eye was about the same. The over 40s talked about more poor vision, and that's probably more poor near vision. So which is to be expected, they're presbyopic. So the over 40s are more likely to report poor vision and presbyopia. The under 40s are more likely to report discomfort. Now, it could also be, of course, that some of those over 40s, they've been wearing contact lenses for longer, so now they've adapted to that discomfort. They've got used to it. So the discomfort is less of a problem for them, but not being able to read is still a problem. But we can solve that one because we have these multifocal contact lenses, which are no longer special order. We have them on our shelves. So comfort depends on lots of factors. The material, and when we're talking about material, there's all sorts of things that come into that: the modulus, the friction, the lubrication, the oxygen, the hydration of the contact lens, the thickness, the edge design, all sorts of things come into that contact lens material. And that's where our professional services colleagues who work for the manufacturers can help us and tell us what are the new advances in that area. But also the replacement schedules. Maybe this patient is getting discomfort, so we need to replace the lens more regularly. We've got them on a monthly lens, but maybe we need to put them on a 2-weekly lens, or maybe we need to move them onto a daily lens. So let's think about the replacement schedules as well. Now, again, I remember this from when I was practicing in the early days. We used to sometimes say to patients, okay, why don't you take your lenses out for half an hour in the middle of the day, give your eyes a rest, and then put them back in again. Give them a clean and put them back in again. That doesn't work. Recovery periods don't work. And this was a study to look at end of day comfort for patients who had, in this first chart, no recovery period, and then they had 30 minutes recovery, or 60 minutes recovery, or 90 minutes recovery periods, up to an hour and a half. And the end of day comfort did not change. So even if the patients were removing their lenses for an hour and a half in the middle of the day, the end of day comfort remained the same. So it's not that they needed a recovery period, it's that the lens is starting to feel achy towards the end of the day. So let's think about materials, and let's think about re-wetting drops. Okay. Disinfecting, I'm not really going to talk a lot about this, but it has been shown that some solutions will work better with some contact lens materials. And that's really pretty much all I'm going to say about that, because that's something where you need more guidance and more expertise from the manufacturers who make these products. Remember, we said non-compliance is normal. Pretty much all contact lens wearers will show some degree of non-compliance. And studies have shown that all of them have failed to comply in at least one aspect of the curing. They reuse their contact lenses, for example, and this was a study looking at patients who reuse their contact lenses, or sorry, lots of studies. And you can see that in these 7 studies, reusing of daily disposable contact lenses was anything between 1 in 8 up to nearly 1 in 3. So patients are not behaving themselves properly. They are doing things non-compliantly. So remind them when they come in for their aftercares, remind them. And this is, again, a very important reason to bring them back for aftercares, regular aftercares. If you don't, you do risk those patients dropping out. So let's have a proactive approach to this leaking bucket. Let's try and patch up these holes. How are we going to maximize the information that I want to give to the patient? If a brand new patient came to my practice today, I fit in there with them some contact lenses and I have them in stock. So I say, okay, we'll teach you how to put them on your eye, take them off your eyes. We'll teach you how to clean them if they need a cleaning solution. And then we'll give them some lenses to go away and we'll say, okay, we'll see you in 1 month. And maybe in that first appointment, I give them a whole list of things that they must do, things that they mustn't do. They won't remember it all. I could write it down. They probably won't read it all. So the patient will have a limited capacity to take on the information that you give them. How can we maximize that? We use appropriate and coherent language. So it's no point saying to the patient, if you overwear your contact lenses, you will get neovascularization and dehydration syndrome, and you'll possibly get corneal exhaustion syndrome. They won't understand that. Your corneal endothelium will show polymegathism. It means nothing to the patient. So use appropriate language. If you wear your contact lenses too much, your eye will feel like this, and this will reduce the number of years you may be able to wear contact lenses. It will cause discomfort, it will cause poor vision, it will cause irritation. Explain it to them in a language they understand. Use the technology. Nowadays, everybody has a phone. We're sending short messages to each other. We have apps like WhatsApp and whatever else. We have Facebook and social networks and video chats. So maybe in your practice, you should have your own YouTube channel where you have tutorial videos for the patient. Say, hey, if you're not sure about something, how to clean the lenses, go to my YouTube channel, look at my video on how I clean the lenses, and you can remind yourself of how to clean the lenses. Remind yourself of the advice that I give to patients when they first wear contact lenses. But it should also be a continuous communication process. On the first appointment, you might give them some information, enough for the next 2 weeks, because you're going to see them for an aftercare in 2 weeks' time. Then in 2 weeks' time, you bring them back, you give them more information. You say, okay, now we have 2 weeks, if we wear lenses, I also want to tell you, don't do this, you must do this, you shouldn't do this, you should also do this. We give them a stressing of more information. The way we say things, we use hand language, we use hand gestures, you stressing, sometimes you do this. And also, we also can use the technology in a positive way. So for example, I know one practice where they fit a lot of extended wear contact lenses. And so in his practice, this friend of mine practice, he basically says the 1st of January, the 1st of February, the 1st of March, the 1st of April, the 1st of May, June, etc., etc. The 1st of the calendar month is changeover day. So on the first day of every calendar month, he sends a SMS or a WhatsApp message to all the patients of the practice to say, if you're extended wear patients, today, throw your old lenses away and put the new ones in. So even if he fitted the patient on the 14th of April, the 1st of May, he says, throw your lenses away, because the 1st of the month is going to be changeover day. So his practice, all the staff, they know it's changeover day. And so everybody who wears extended wear lenses gets the message, today's changeover day, change your lenses. I said also that patients are likely to drop out of contact lens wear in those first few months. So again, why don't you use the technology? Again, your patient came in today, brand new contact lens wearer, walked away with the contact lenses. We're going to see him in 2 weeks' time. But from now until 2 weeks is 14 days. There could be some problems. Why don't I ring him in 3 days' time, or ask one of my staff members to ring him because I'm busy with the next patient? One of the optical assistants can ring the patient and say, you had the new contact lenses 3 days ago, and how are things? Is everything okay? Are you okay putting them in, taking them out, cleaning them? Any problems at all that you want to tell us about? Because if they have a problem, they might just need some advice. Or maybe there's a more serious problem, they should come back to the practice straight away. So those sort of positive affirmations of the information you're giving is a very useful thing for the patient. And sometimes it's nice for the optical assistants to get involved because they will use a less scientific language than you will use. You might talk about, are you overwearing your contact lenses? And that's kind of a strange question. So the optical assistant might say, how many hours do you wear them? And, are you wearing them too many hours? Do your eyes feel tired? They might say it in a different way. Another question we ask patients when they come back for their aftercare, we often ask them some quite strange questions. And we say to them, how's your vision? That's a really strange question. If you break it down, how is your vision? Well, my vision is good. My vision is fine. I don't know what to say. But why don't you ask it in a different way? Why don't you say to the patient something like, maybe he's a school teacher. So we say, okay, I know you're a school teacher. When you're at school and you're wearing your contact lenses, can you see the blackboard? Can you see your computer screen? Can you see the students? So we put them in their real world situation and we say, can you do these things? Can you do these tasks that we know the teacher will do? So think of the terminology that you use when you ask this, and stress compliance at each stage. And reinforce it. The patients, it's exactly like teaching in a school or teaching in a university. We give our students information in different ways. For example, if we want to teach a student how to do retinoscopy, we ask them to read the chapter in the book, we go through a lecture with them, we show them how to do it, and then we ask them to practice it. So we reinforce the message by their background reading, by our communication, our speech, by our demonstration, and by watching their demonstration. In exactly the same way, when you want the patients to put the contact lenses in and out their eye, we show them first, we talk to them about it, we show them how to do it, and then we watch them do it. So you need to reinforce the message with different teaching strategies. Now, this is the last slide, and I think we have a little bit of time for some questions. And this is, again, quite an important slide here. It's quite a complicated slide, so I'm going to spend a few minutes on this one. This was a study of independent optical practices in the UK. What I mean by independent practices is in the UK, we have these big optical chains. And I know that you have them. I don't know the companies in Nepal, but I know in India, for example, they have Lenskart and Titan and other companies. In the UK, we have big companies like Vision Express, Specsavers, Boots. So this survey was done not from those, but from the independent practitioners, because they have a different business model, and that was why. And this broke down the practices in the profitability. So we had the best practices, the best 25%, which is the upper quartile, which is on the right-hand side. And then we had the lower quartile, which was the worst 25%. And then in the middle column, you can see the median. But let's focus on the upper quartile and the lower quartile. And what you can see is, depending on the amount of contact lens work you do, so if your practice does more contact lens work, so let's look at the upper quartile. The volume of contact lens work in the upper quartile of profitable practices do almost 22% of their work is contact lenses. Compared to the lower quartile, about 8% of their work is contact lenses. And you look at every single measure below that, everything is more profitable with the patients, with the practices that do more contact lens work. So if you do more contact lens work, your optometrist can do more eye examinations per day, or they do more eye examinations per day by 50%, 12 versus 7. The new patients, again, there are more new patients going into the upper quartile practices. The average sales per optometrist are better in the upper quartile. The average dispensing value for spectacles is 50% higher for the practices that do more contact lens work. The sales per eye examination is 50% higher in those practices that do more contact lens work. How much they charge for the eye examination is higher in the practices that do more contact lens work. Everything. And the last point is the conversion rate. Conversion rate means if you did 10 eye examinations, how many of those 10 patients buy spectacles? If 5 buy spectacles, your conversion rate is 50%. The conversion rate is higher, so more people are trusting those practices that do more contact lens work. Those practitioners are more engaged with the practice, and those patients are more engaged with that optometrist and that practice as well. So doing more contact lens work does increase revenue. It does help your business, but also it helps your eye examination side of your business and the spectacle side of your business. It's across the board. Definitely it's worthwhile. Do not think of contact lenses as what we call a loss leader. Yes, they take more chair time in the initial period, but later on you make up for that. I think that was my last slide. Oh, this is one more slide, sorry. So some simple tips. Get the lenses on the patient side. Talk to the patient at the end of the eye examination about contact lenses, maybe try some lenses on them to help them with their dispensing. Almost sort of, be a little bit more proactive. But getting the lens on the eye, the patient will automatically see the benefit. You don't have to sell it now. It's on the eye. Wow, this is strange. I can see everything, and I haven't got my spectacles on. And the spectacle purchasers have even said that they would choose contact lenses if you help them make that decision. And especially the EASE study where the contact lens was inserted to help them with the dispensing. But be honest, your presbyopia says, I want my vision to be like it was when I was 20 years old. I want to be able to read here and see far away and drive and go to the cinema. Well, be honest and say, look, whatever solution I give you will have compromises, but I'll tell you what the compromises are. In exactly the same way, when you're putting a soft lens on somebody's eye, you tell them, you say, when I put this lens on your eye, I tell them how it will feel. So it'll feel like a water drop. But after a few seconds, after 10, 20 seconds, you won't notice it anymore. So I'm very honest. And sometimes with the soft contact lens, whereas you give them the lens and they hold the lens, so they know what it is that you're going to put on their eye. So have an honest, open conversation. Talk about correcting cylinders for those astigmatic patients. You are going to have a lot of dropouts from toric patients, astigmatic patients if you don't fit them with toric lenses. And simplify your routine. Are there clinical tests that you don't need to do? Are there questions that you ask for no reason? And if you're asking questions, doing clinical tests, why? Think about why. Are you using that information, or are you just writing it down for no reason? So think about those things as well. So maybe simplify your routine as well. So that was the last slide. I did mention at the beginning, if anybody is a contact lens educator, then do have a look at the IACL webpage. And if anybody's got any questions, I think we have time. So I'm going to hand back to Solu now as well. And I'll stop the sharing. I think it stopped. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Shehzad, for such a wonderful session. Well, now it's time for the discussion session to begin. Are you ready to take the questions, Doctor?
Yes, sure.
Okay, let me check out the questions that our audience might have raised. Okay, we have our first question by Dr. Ed. Thank you so much for your question, Dr. Ed. Our question goes as, how best can we manage low riding contact lens in practice?
Okay, so for a low riding contact lens, it sounds like if you're talking about a soft lens, it could be too flat, and maybe you need to tighten up the base curve, the BOZR. Similarly with a gas permeable lens, but with a gas permeable lens, we're to go for a slightly larger contact lens because that will increase the sag and steepen the lens up a little bit. So yeah, this is more of a practical sort of fitting question, but yes, certainly you'd need to either steepen the soft lens or increase the diameter or steepen the gas permeable lens, if that was the question.
Okay, doctor, we have another question. What is the marketability of hyperosmotic contact lens for corneal edema?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. So what is the
Marketability.
marketability?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I still understand the question. Sorry, could you repeat one more time?
Okay, doctor. What is the marketability of hyperosmotic contact lens for corneal edema?
Okay. Well, in the case of somebody with corneal edema, you need some sort of recovery period. So I think we need to have. I think the question's come up. What is the marketability of hyperosmotic contact lenses of corneal edema? I don't really have any experience of this, but all I would say is that if somebody has corneal edema, then you need to give them a recovery period, and that would be my management of them, to give them a short recovery period first. But if you're talking about therapeutic lenses, then it's probably a little bit different to the scope of this talk. So probably it's not really appropriate, and I can't really answer that.
Okay, doctor. We have another question. Can you see the questions on the chat screen?
Yeah. So let me just put the chat screen up as well. Okay, so what is the, that's a good question. Yeah, there are contact lenses that are, the question is about the efficiency of the Google contact lens introduced in 2014, measuring glucose content, diabetes. What is the future? Look, the future is going to be, some people even say contact lenses are going to be one of the most important products in the future. And there are commercially available contact lenses that can measure the pressure of somebody's eye to monitor glaucoma, for example. There are ways of measuring glucose content in contact lenses, in patients using contact lenses. And we had the Google spectacles a couple of years ago. It wasn't Google contact lenses, but Google spectacles. But Google and Apple and Microsoft and other big IT companies are investing a lot of money in developing contact lens technology. So do have a look at web pages, look at patents. There's a very famous professor from Washington State University who moved to Google, and in fact I heard last that Apple recruited him, and he's now working for Apple, but to develop some sort of virtual reality, augmented reality type of contact lens devices. So we could expect to see electronics more and more miniaturized into contact lenses. So it's going to be a product to take seriously in the future. At the moment, I don't think it's quite there, and there are other problems that they have to overcome first. But yeah, definitely look out for them.
Well, these are only the questions that have been raised by our attendees till now. We will be waiting for just a few minutes if anyone is willing to ask. Okay, we have another question. Any advice we should not miss for contact lens use in swimmers?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I'm glad that somebody asked this question. So contact lens wearers and swimmers. Look, we know that when you swim, there is an increased risk of acanthamoeba infection. So the general advice we would give to patients is do not swim with your contact lenses. Don't even shower with your contact lenses in. We don't want contaminated water to be on the contact lens for the contaminant to get into the contact lens matrix and stay in contact with the eye. So this would be our basic general advice to all contact lens patients. There may be certain scenarios where you feel comfortable that this patient is sensible and you might want to discuss with them that they can wear their contact lens for swimming, and that's a separate. But for most patients, for nearly all patients, we would say no contact lenses for swimming. Maybe you have a sensible patient and you have been seeing this patient for 10 years, you have a good long-standing relationship, and you can give them some advice. And you might say, look, wear some daily disposables. After you come out the swimming pool, throw them away. And, so there are some other things that we can do. And then don't wear lenses again for maybe 24 hours. But generally, the advice would be don't swim with your contact lenses.
Okay, thank you for your answers, doctor. Thus far, these are only the questions that have been raised by our attendees, and I guess we have answered almost all the questions till now.
Yeah.
Okay, we can again see one question. Shall I read out the question for you?
Please do. Thanks.
Okay. What is your advice to use MPs before and after the use of contact lens?
Yeah, another nice question. I guess this question is related to occasional wearers of contact lenses, because certain types of contact lens solutions for example, peroxide, we put a neutralizing tablet or platinum disc or something like that inside the contact lens case. So once the peroxide is neutralized, the contact lens is just sitting in some sort of sterile solution, but it's no longer sitting in a disinfectant. So in those cases, maybe the multi-purpose solution will be better. But if it's an occasional wearer, we might say to the patient, look, you're going to wear the lenses once a week to play football. Clean the lenses once you've taken them out, but before you put them back on, clean them again. But my advice would be, if that's an occasional wearer, give them daily disposables, because then you get rid of the contact lens cleaning element completely.
Okay. Well, we have answered almost all the questions. Now, considering the time limits, here I announce the closure of discussion session. And I would again like to express my immense gratitude towards our presenter, Dr. Shehzad Naroo, and to all the attendees for their endurance. Also, I would like to thank all the direct and indirect helping hands for the ITEX program. Before wrap up, I request our today's presenter, Dr. Shehzad, to share his few words to our program.
Well, I think it's a very nice program, and from what I can see, and I've seen some of the previous presenters as well on your YouTube channel. So it's a very good initiative. I'm very pleased to be part of this, and I wish you luck going forward. And it does seem as though this will be a format, this video type lectures, that we use even after the COVID-19 lockdown pandemic has cleared. And it seems to be a very efficient way to get speakers from around the world to communicate with local and regional audiences. So yes, I'm pleased to be part of it, and I wish you luck going forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shehzad. It's our immense pleasure to have you with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Solu. Thank you, Kapil.
Okay, doctor. Okay. There is one more question actually from the audience. So I just put on the comment section what the advice for the contact lens user who mostly wash their faces like several times in a day.
Yeah. Okay. Look, if you're going to wash your face several times a day, and I suppose, we're talking about maybe some religious groups as well, where they're praying and they have to wash their face as part of the ablution process, then make sure your eyes are tightly shut, and make sure that you don't get any excess water in the eye, and that sort of thing. So yeah, just be careful, I suppose. We're not going to say to them to remove their contact lens every time they wash their face. And really that sort of surface washing of the face probably isn't going to cause any problems. The problems really are when people are in the shower and they've got their contact lens in and they've got their head in front of the shower and the shower's on their face. That's more likely to cause a contamination. But that sort of washing of the face gently shouldn't be a problem.
All right, this is the question so far. Once again, thank you so much, doctor.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody.
Herewith, I announce the closure of today's webinar. Hope